the primary election in Ohio tomorrow, and folks are lining up to give out their endorsements for different races, particularly that U.S. Senate race in Ohio. And U.S. Senator Rand Paul joins me now. Good morning, Senator. How are you?
Good morning, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you've gotten involved in this this Senate primary in Ohio. Talk about who you're endorsing.
I'm endorsing Mike Gibbons. I met him several years ago when he made a previous run to try to knock off Sherrod Brown. He's a businessman. I think he's somebody that's committed to the principles of the free market and to capitalism. I don't think he'll give in and sort of go along with the Republican establishment. Sometimes our problem is not just the Democrats, but it's the Republican establishment. And I think Gibbons has what it takes. He's a self-made man, came from a working-class neighborhood in Cleveland, was very, very successful. But I don't think, our problem when we tried to get rid of Obamacare is we lost 7 Republicans. So I don't think he'll be one of those. I think he'll be one that will actually fight for things that, I think are important. Getting to the bottom of where the virus came from, investigating Fauci, investigating the whole apparatus there. So I just think he has that commitment. I don't have anything disparaging to say about the others, just that I do think that he has the commitment that it'll take to be a great senator.
Yeah. This Ministry of Truth that came out last week, unbelievable. The Disinformation Governance Board. Is anybody standing against that nonsense?
It's hard to imagine. It's really hard to imagine that this isn't sort of something from Babylon B, that this isn't made up. That the government under Biden actually would have a Ministry of Truth, a Ministry of Disinformation, where they're going to decide what's true, what's not. And basically that's sort of deciding that there will be no debate in this country, that if you're on the other side of the government's position in a debate, that you'll be censored. And the crazy woman that they've appointed to it, she tweeted out during the beginning of the pandemic, she was like, I don't think the free-spirited Americans will do what it takes to do social distancing. So, yes, we should use force away on them and lock them down. So I could see this woman working in China, maybe. I would think that she'd fit right in with the white hazmat suits beating the crap out of anybody that dares to go outside or try to get food. But I don't see her in America or representing anything American. And the mistake the Biden administration's making day after day is go to the airport and see what the American people want. Now we got rid of the mask mandate, 97% of us want to be left the heck alone, and we're no longer wearing the mask. So if Biden wants to force us back into masks and give us a ministry, a czar for the Ministry of Truth, I think he's really going in the wrong direction, and he'll suffer, because in November we're going to vote to get rid of all these people.
Senator, you mentioned investigating the origins of COVID-19. What exactly does that mean? How would you do that?
Well, one of the things is we'd investigate and get to the scientists who in the early days suspected that it did come from the lab. And then for some mysterious reason, within days, Dr. Fauci met with them, and all of a sudden they all changed their mind. I think under oath that we may get to the truth of what was discussed in those meetings. Some of the truth is already known. We know that Fauci and Dr. Collins were communicating back and forth, and that they were sort of saying, well, it might have come from the lab, but boy, it would be bad for science. Be bad for our reputation, bad for the Chinese scientists' reputations, if it was discovered that the government, the NIH, led by Fauci and Collins, actually was sending money to China, and that's where the lab came from. So it was covering their you-know-what. It was a cover-up. But the thing is covering up 1 million deaths is a serious crime. They've also been asked about whether or not, it's a good idea to develop viruses that don't exist in nature that are very dangerous, like COVID. And Fauci has always been in favor of this. So I think we need to investigate exactly what their opinions have been on this, and also investigate moving forward, how do we prevent something like this from happening? I think really there, in the end, will have to be, or should be, an international convention of civilized countries to voluntarily agree that there's certain research we're not going to do because of the danger of creating pandemics.
Yeah. We're talking with Senator Rand Paul, who is endorsing Mike Gibbons, U.S. Senate candidate in tomorrow's Ohio primary. So talk a little bit about where Gibbons might be on this Russia-Ukraine war.
My position, I can give very clearly, and I think he's been very supportive of my position, is that we don't ever put boots on the ground anywhere without a vote by Congress. The Constitution says that a declaration of war comes from Congress and that we shouldn't have troops involved over there. My point in the past has always been that it has been provocative to put them into NATO. The misinterpretation sometimes people make of this is that they think it somehow justifies Putin's invasion. I don't think anything justifies his invasion. My sympathies are with the Ukrainians, but Biden is now proposing another $33 billion. The leadership in the Republican and Democrat Party just voted $14 billion. So this will be $47 billion. That's nearly equal to an entire year's military spending by Russia. So I think that's insane, and I'm not for bankrupting our country for any other country, no matter how great our sympathies are. And I would say that Gibbons is very sympathetic to the viewpoint that I put forward. The exact details, of course, he has to express himself. But from what I've heard from Gibbons, I think he's very supportive of where I am on this.
Yeah, with that kind of money we're sending to Ukraine, we could have built more than one border walls.
That's for sure. The insanity of this whole thing, and it's just everything in Washington is throw more money at a problem. But, my oath of office is to America, to our country, not to some other country, even if my sympathies lie with the plight of the Ukrainians. My first oath of office is to our country. I'm supposed to defend our country and know what our national security interests are. And right now, the biggest threat to our country is inflation. It's eating us alive. Poor, working class, retired people on pensions are suffering greatly as prices rise. We spend another $33 billion in Ukraine. Guess what? That just leads to more rising prices as we have to subsidize that debt with and monetize it with Federal Reserve's new money created. So, no, I'm very worried that if we just keep piling debt on, that Americans are going to suffer.
What is the best reaction for the U.S. to have in that situation?
I think we can be sympathetic. Have been in favor of selling arms to Ukraine, but I think they should be sold, not given. And I think we're getting ready to give away the farm. $33 billion is not an insignificant amount of money, and this comes on the heel of already giving them $14 billion. It really comes on the heel of probably giving them between $4 and $6 billion over the last several years. So they'll now be the largest recipient of free money from the U.S., larger than Israel, larger than Egypt, larger than any other country in the world. And I just don't think it's good for our national security to bankrupt our country.
U.S. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky endorsing Mike Gibbons for Senate in Ohio, the Ohio primary tomorrow. Senator, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.